Okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Conteh. Thank you for being here again this Sunday. And we want to thank our audience as well, those Gambians listening to us. Dr. Conteh, big things happened in the Gambia over the weekend. Yesterday, Gambians went to the poll again to vote for National Assembly members for the coming 5 years. The results are out as announced by the IEC. Assume those results are final, and quite interesting results, one can say. A number of highlights I want to give, Dr. Conteh, in the run-up to the elections. To begin with, the hope, was that Gambians will elect very competent, very independent-minded people to the National Assembly. There was a lot of debate on this, even criticisms of the kind of candidates, of the low-quality candidates some political parties are presenting to the people. So that was a big concern in the run-up to the elections, that we might end up electing people into the National Assembly who would just be a rubber stamp to the president's agenda. Nonetheless, the poll results are out, the election results are out. Quite spectacular, quite interesting stuff to learn from it. First off, I wanted to say that it is obvious. Barrow came out, Barrow's party, NPP, together with its coalition members, NRP, APRC, came out with the majority, something like 24 seats out of the 58. UDP came out with 16, which is second place to NPP's 24. And there was concern that UDP may have performed poorly because UDP did not really campaign very well, very hard for these National Assembly elections. They may have conducted a lot of grassroots campaign, but I have not seen their party leader campaigning hard for his candidates. I understand he went to a few places in the Commons, but other than that, he's been totally absent, from the party. Barrow, on the other hand, campaigned very hard across the country for his candidates, and he has reaped some benefits out of that. But UDP did not campaign really hard this time. Perhaps UDP put more emphasis, more importance on the presidential election than National Assembly elections, which is, in my view, a poor decision to take. National Assembly elections are equally important to our democracy and to the future of our country, and actually to the future of any political party. If you are hoping to do well in presidential elections in the future, I think you should really make a serious attempt to do well in the National Assembly elections so you can influence the future direction of the country. But nonetheless, that's what happened. Barrow came out with the majority, 24. UDP, second place, 16. Doi lost 2 seats. They lost 2 out of their previous 4. Now they only have 2. which is Serekunda Halifa's seat is preserved to the female candidate who replaced him. And then they also retain Swami Toure's seat in Wuli East. Sidia prominently, Sidia Jata, Wuli West, and Usman Sila Banjul North lost their seats. Very unfortunate. We would have loved, I'm sure many Gambians across all parties would have loved to see Sidia back in the National Assembly. Some important figures also, prominent figures who lost, include Yakumba Jaite of UDP, who contested the Serekunda seat and lost to the Doi candidate. Nene Frida of CA did not make it either. So those are important figures who one would have hoped would have also entered the National Assembly. But of course, only one can go. My party, who put up a challenge to Sidia Jata in Wuli, equally lost. Big defeat for GMC. GMC is a political party that has never actually taken off. They have basically all along have been riding on the back of other political parties, initially UDP, and quite recently an attempt on NPP, but it's been really very, how would I call it? It's a very unsustainable political party, if I may put it like that. Dr. Conteh, this might be the demise of GDC also. GDC has no seat in the National Assembly. They had a young, vibrant member of the parliament in the name of Omar Sise of, I forgot the constituency he's representing, but the guy was very endeared to a lot of young people. He's been very vibrant in the National Assembly and kind of quite progressive. Mm-hmm. But he's been wiped out by NPP, NRP coalition. So he lost his seat, bringing GDC to 0 in the National Assembly. So PPP did not win any seats also, so it's basically NPP, APRC, and NRP coalition that came up with the majority. But Dr. Conteh, even if you look at the coalition, Barrow's coalition, NPP, APRC, NRP, NRP was able to bring in 4 seats to the coalition, and APRC was only able to bring in 2 seats from New Joswang and Bondo. APRC, interestingly, lost the whole of Fonyi to James faction of the APRC. That is the no to coalition faction. No to coalition swept the whole of Fonyi. This is quite interesting and spectacular in the sense that Barrow swept the Fonyi in the presidential election against the no coalition. But in the National Assembly elections, we have seen a complete turnaround. They all voted against the APRC, traditional APRC, and went to the no coalition. So we're still going to have to look at this and try to flesh it out a little bit more and get a better understanding of what is happening in the Fonyi. The recent incursions, recent conflict between Senegalese forces and Casamance forces could be a big factor in swaying the Fonyi vote to the no against Barrow's coalition to the no coalition. But we will have to look at this more closely and see the dynamics of Fonyi politics recently. Dr. Conteh, what one can also say about these National Assembly election is that with Barrow's 24 elected candidates, we have to remember that Barrow still can nominate 5 more members to the National Assembly, giving him 29. This in itself will not give him a supermajority. He has the majority, no doubt, but the kind of majority I think they wanted, they campaigned on to get, that hope was diminished, was dashed. Barrow is not going to be able to do major bills, and will not be able to change any entrenched clauses of the Constitution without making a compromise. 29 members out of the 58 seats in the National Assembly will not be able to give him the enough votes to do much without compromising. But what he can also do is to try to co-opt the 6 independent candidates. Excuse me. The 6 independent candidates onto his side. So that will give him something like 34. But even that is not going to give him the 2/3 majority to do major ambitious changes, especially with regards to the Constitution. So Barrow may have to work really hard to co-opt the 6 independent candidates that mostly are from NPP, who wanted to run for NPP candidacy, but they were not selected. So he has to work hard to bring them in on his side. So he may have to bring in more trucks, dish out more trucks, vehicles to these members, and also roll out more brown envelopes to get them on his side, probably, like he did before. But he has to try to convince some of these people to support his agenda. And obviously, he has to compromise a lot. Even in the future, the new constitution he wants to bring in, he will have to do major compromises on it in order to be able to make it pass. Because the 16 UDP members will largely, their big job would be to block anything Barrow wants to do. So he's going to really face a major obstacle in pushing, rolling out his agenda through the National Assembly. Dr. Conteh, those are my observations of these National Assembly elections as of now. What do you have to say?
Well, thank you. What I'm concerned about is voter apathy, and we should try to educate voters in the Gambia that presidential election is not the only election that they should participate in. Because I looked at Woolly West with a registered population of 12,000, only 7,700 people voted.
Right.
So precisely almost 4,000 did not vote. So we need to look at it critically. I looked at the election results in Jara West, where Kajali Fofana of UDP lost by 300 votes. I was wondering, where those people registered, those people who registered in Jara West, were they living in the combos? And because of transportation problems, they did not go to vote. So that actually was the responsibility of the UDP legislator that was running for re-election. But I am kind of concerned about the tribal divide, particularly in Jara. And I just don't understand how anyone can look at politics based on that. And I'm very surprised, that NPP maybe leveled in the same way that GDC was leveled. Uh, if anyone doesn't believe me, I want you to go and look at the candidates that NPP selected from Jara and conclude with for yourself. Because we should coexist as a nation. Politics should not be based on tribal lines. One thing I'm very concerned about the next parliament and having Barrow's people passing agenda. I'm I'm concerned about the fiscal responsibilities of our country. Every single time you look at the value of the Gambian dollar relative to the dollar or the British pound sterling or the euro, the Gambian dollar is losing its strength. Uh, for us who are here sending money home, our people will receive more dollars as before. But when they go to the stores to buy stuff, they pay more. I am very concerned about his appetite for capital expenditure, whereby the only area they look for is to borrow, to take more loans. So no one is putting emphasis on how to increase our revenue base. I am of the opinion that those who are coming in, do they even understand our fiscal and monetary policies and how these legislators can be engaged when the Barrow administration comes in again to bring another budget? I'm very concerned also about the suicidal nature of increasing civil service salaries to the tune of 256%. In some areas, salaries were increased by more than 400%. That how on earth can you pass a budget that was approved in 2020, 2021 December for 2022 fiscal year, and then within 21 days you're going to introduce salary increase, and now you are saying that you're going to increase salaries, they're going to take effect in July when we don't have the revenue base. We going to be taking, are we going to borrow more money? And if we're going to borrow more money, what is going to happen to our fiscal structure, our monetary policy? There's super inflation in the Gambia. So do we have capable people who can stand to address the issues and not to be co-opted by the fact that they are NPP? Because right now election has taken effect. So what do we have to do now as citizens is to see what we can do to move our country forward. So I am not too pleased with the caliber of people we have in parliament, with the exception, I can say, of maybe Kante of Busumbala. And are they willing to engage us? And UDP representatives and UDP as a political party. So now begin to engage Gambians who they may have disagreed with politically, to so that we can engage their parliamentarians, because I don't want this parliament to be rubber stamp, whereby if Barrow administrations, especially the Minister of Finance, comes with anything, they're gonna approve. Because since Mamburenjai took over, our government dollar has depreciated tremendously. And we are looking at capital expenditure, and most of the capital expenditure uh, is encumbered by loans. And even the Banjul Street project development, they talk about it was privately financed. No, it wasn't privately financed. It was financed through our taxpayers' money. So this is one area I am very concerned, and I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have hyperinflation in our country, whereby uh, a lot of people will not be able to afford How can you have a bag of sugar costing $2,000? And no initiative is addressed in a sense to say that if we don't have sugar, why can we try to produce honey? So the agricultural sector is left behind. So I'm not too pleased with this parliament and its capability of engaging the Minister of Finance, because everybody tries to blame the Minister of Trade. The Minister of Trade, they have nothing to do with what is going on, because all they do is arrange uh, trade transactions. But the bulk of the problem comes from the Ministry of Finance. And if you are going to go out there, you remember Gambia's budget outlay. The expenditure of 53% of our expenditure, 47% of our expenditure is financed externally.
Right.
So, and that's what I was when the president was it was when he made this respective remarks on Syria. I said Syria should have said that keme o keme dala sitan nan warawula Gambian kol bi ko soto no tibabu la ko kodo ki pruke ma koy. So ni ka foko be sila dala e kayim birujol min bebe da dalte Gambia keme o keme Gambia government se min kenoje wolong dalasi talula and warawula. These are things that we can say, and then you can narrate that to your own compound. To say ko ni besuo kono ni lafta boli ilafta purkamu ila din bali fi. So kemo keme ite you are only able to get dalasi talul ni warawula. Nun tulu be nyinke kan what all through. Then now I think I'm going to go back to be independent, because this is something. We supported the borough administration, but I was very disappointed on the candidate selection and the exclusion of other people. Thank God that some of those people, some of those brave people, decided to run independent, and they were successful in winning. But again, when you tend to disagree with the borough administration, in other areas they say that you are against his agenda. What agenda are they talking about? The agenda that they're going to mention to borough, it came from them. So are they saying that anything that they believe in should be implemented in the Gambia is absolute? So I know we are all at fault, but I congratulate UDP, and Hussein Dabo should now begin to see that he should just retire and find a dynamic person to lead the political party that can be inclusive. And UDP people should also begin to realize that you cannot base politics on retaliation. Going to Fatimata Jawara's compound to attack her son. And no, that was totally uncalled for. And this is why UDP actually lost the presidential election. Because if you make comparative analysis, you can see that how come Barrow was able to sweep Combo, but he was only able to win only one seat, which is Old Yundum. And in the entire KMC, NPP was not able to win. So this would be a study point for UDP to say we should be an inclusive party. But also UDP and other political parties should begin to educate voters to say that local government elections, those are areas where your needs are addressed. But to see, these people getting only 12 people on the side of NPP selecting candidates, I thought that was, so you can easily bribe. I'm not saying that they bribed a lot of people, but, that's what transpired. So there was no transparency, and some people were excluded from consideration. And those who had the wherewithal or the money to run, they went ahead and ran as independent. But we cannot afford to say that we are going to just support 100% of what President Barrow advocates as his policy. Because if you see those policies since 2017 have resulted in the devaluation of the Gambian dollar. There has not been any increase in the productivity of agriculture, and the farmers are actually complaining that their granules are not being bought. So why should I support the political party based on that? So, and when it comes to us in diaspora, they say that they have a diaspora section. where we can engage them. I'm telling you, during the election, when we called them, they answered the telephone. But after the election, they were nowhere to be seen. So, it seems like we are regressing. We are not going forward in any endeavor. And then when you look at the congestion over at the ports, it's scary. Banjul being only one way in by the road, by land, and one way in by the sea. And we are not looking at anything to say that to have any contingency planning just in case we have disaster in Banjul. How are we going to be able to get our goods? So, and then if you live in Brikama, you are coming to Sarakunda. They say it takes 3 hours. That is ridiculous. And then, so there is no insight whatsoever how we're going to develop. But what I'm seeing here is that UNDP needs to modernize its political party and be very inclusive, be very moderate, and that this type of hooliganism, Hussein should condemn. It was unjustifiable for anyone to go to Fatima Jawara's compound to attack her son, and even to be going out there harassing them. That's not the Gambia we love. So I'm not too happy, but for me, I want to learn. Anytime they talk about the budget in the Gambia, I'm willing to engage those parliamentarians to say, no, don't vote for this, because if you do, our our liabilities will increase, because every single year in the Gambia we have fiscal deficit. We never had a fiscal surplus, and in order for us to close our fiscal surplus, we had to go out there and borrow money, more money, more money. And when the school kids, they don't have, the government cannot even allocate to feed the children of the Gambia. So I'm not too happy with this election results, because by looking at some of the nominations in some districts, it was based on tribal lines, and politics shouldn't be based on that. So I rest my case.
Thank you, Dr. Conteh. Thank you very much for that. Yes, I totally agree that the selection process has been greatly flawed in many ways. But the actual outcome of the election, the results, I think is better than what many anticipated. The fact that we ended up not having the rubber stamp parliament that NPP and its partners wanted is good news for the Gambian people. Barrow is only going to be able to have a majority, but not a supermajority, to be able to do anything much without compromises and negotiations. UDP 16 seats, along with APRC North Coalition's 6 seats, that is pretty much like 22 seats. So if UDP is able to work with the APRC North Coalition's 6 independent seats and bring them on their side as voting partners, they can put up a pretty good challenge to Barrow's agenda in the National Assembly. So that's the kind of thing we wanted. So that can be a really good thing. On the salary increases, we'll see how this plays out, but I have a feeling that it's going to worsen the Gambia's economic situation. It's literally going to put out more money into the economy, and we will see more demand for goods and services which are not available. The supply side of the Gambian economy is pretty terrible right now, and we'll see more hikes in prices of goods and services, literally more inflation. So I think it's really going to worsen the economic situation in the country. So I think it's, like you said, it's not a very good idea. But again, this plays out to the quality of people we have in the National Assembly. We all hope Gambian people had selected very competent, very educated people, economists, lawyers, accountants, engineers, people who understand the economy, development, legal frameworks, to run the affairs of the people. But unfortunately, we see a lot of people who are just local champions. Like one professor once said, Dr. Senghor once said that Gambians often mistake leaders for champions for leaders. So we see that play out over and over in Gambian situations. Um, Dr. Conte, I think it is totally wrong for UDP to attack Fatmata Jawara and his family. But they have to understand that they probably have to continue to deal with this woman, because even though he lost the election, this is not going to be the end of her. She's in Barrow's good books, and I will not be surprised if Barrow nominates her as a nominated member of the National Assembly. So we will see, but I'm strongly inclined to believe that she will be in the National Assembly. Even she may have some international appointment somewhere in the foreign service, or maybe even at the State House. So, but this is not going to be the end of her. That's for sure. Also, I think, Dr. Conte, the National Assembly, we are going to see how Barrow is going to deal with the coalition issue. Barrow is yet to select his cabinet. I know he's waiting for this National Assembly election to be over, and now it is. So it's going to be very interesting to see who is going to be in his new cabinet and who he is going to nominate as nominated members of the National Assembly. With the results being what it is, it looks to me that APRC's relevance to Barrow's coalition has greatly diminished. Having lost the whole of Foni to the no coalition, APRC's relevance is very, very much diminished. So I don't know if Barrow will include any of them, or how many of them in his cabinet, or even as nominated members of the National Assembly. It will be greatly interesting to see how Barrow is going to react to these National Assembly election results. But I think APR's relevance to Barrow's coalition and to his agenda is very, very much diminished by this election. Thank you, Dr. Conte. Anything on this?
Okay, the gentleman who won in Serakunda is Musa Cham. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
female. That's for Doi. So Doi actually had Doi won Serakunda and Woolley East.
Woolley is, yeah.
Yeah, and I am of the belief, that regardless of whether Barrow changes his cabinet or not, we're still going to have the same fiscal irresponsibility when it comes to budgetary issues. Because appetite for capital expenditure, you are sacrificing the future of the country. Right now, if one says what is the most urgent transportation need in our country, is reconstruction of the old Basse Highway. That was if most people are not aware of the place, but the road is behind Lameng, and this road would go all the way to Kafuta, and then the other side, the coastal road that most people frequent travel on, uh, goes through Gunjur to Kiti, and then to Manduar, and then it will branch up to Jiboro or Umorto, and then it goes to Kafuta. So the road on the left ends up in Kafuta, the road on the right, and also ends up in Kafuta. That's why they merge. So right now, in trying to reduce congestion, because you cannot have any productivity in a country when a stretch of 7 miles, or maybe precisely 10 miles, it takes you 3 hours. When you are at Westfield, for you to get to the traffic light or whatever they call it, I don't know, it'll take you 2 hours or to get to Bruce Bay.
Right.
And we are not doing any, we just bill, but we don't uh, sit down to strategize as to how we can alleviate our transportation problems. And again, I know that we tried the public transport system in the country. It did not work because of
Yeah, right.
corruption.
Right.
But again, I don't understand in the Gambia, uh, with most people making less than $5,000 a month, how on earth, when you leave Brufut, just to go to Westfield, is it $10 or 15?
I think
And
it's
from
15 now. So,
and then from Westfield to MDI or somewhere to Brikama, sorry, to Bakau is another $10. $10 is, so tell me, if someone with a major salary of $5,000 is, and they have to turn around and use part of that money, you're talking about $20 is. So if you multiply 20 by 5, that's 1,000, right? That's 100 right there.
mhm.
And now, so we're talking about that person's transportation. They're probably going to spend $1,000 is out of that. And I don't understand why Gambians don't pay taxes. I was looking at a gentleman who said that NPP owes him $900,000
Or
uh,
the
for a
musician.
concert, and I said, well, this gentleman should be paying at least 90,000 in taxes. So, and another area is that when are we going to have public transportation? It seems like having these small taxis in the country is not meeting the needs of our folks. I think the government should try to invest more in public transportation rather than leaving transportation to what to private sector. And I think the Gambia Ports Authority, if they have sea transportation, they should also do land transportation, because they have buses that will that they have a bus that goes all the way to Brikama to pick their employees. And I asked someone, so after the buses come and they park at the yard, what do they do? What do they do? Why can they use those same buses to reduce, to help with the transportation? So right now, the urgent need of the government is transportation, because people who leave uh, places coming down, they can't get to work on time. I think the government try to do that. So for me, in my capacity, I'm willing to lend hands to any parliamentarian who would like to, for me to engage him or her on the way forward when it comes to budget needs. That I totally disagree with the budget system that we have in our country. And I also would like to see a parliamentarian bringing a bill to parliament to repeal the Gambia Revenue Act, whereby the Gambia Revenue Authority will not be given the responsibility to assess, record, and have custody of our tax proceeds. If that can be done, I will be the most happiest person. And so, if you tell someone, I want you to collect $18 billion of taxes, and this person comes to you sarcastically and say, "Oh, I collected 100%." So if I ask you to collect 18 billion, you turn around and said, "Oh, I collected 100% of the 18 billion." Then you have capacity to collect 27 billion. I made an argument, and no one has taken light of that.
Right.
So we are cash strapped. We cannot just be, especially with this. Ukraine war going on with Russia. You think Western countries gonna try to help us? No, they're gonna be looking at those people because they know that going to Ukraine to fix the infrastructure is gonna create employment.
Absolutely.
It's gonna create employment. Even like for instance the coal uh, in West Virginia and Wyoming. If those countries are not going to buy coal from Russia, I can tell you that the coal production in the United States is going to increase.
Right.
So we also should take opportunity that being Ukraine being the I think it's one of the largest. It's one of the countries that heavily produce wheat. So why
Right.
can't we have wheat production in the Gambia? Because most of their lands in most of the lands in Ukraine now, I don't think you can do any farming on them because Russia probably put a lot of dynamics in there, and who would want to go and do that? So, and most of the machinery, if you look at it, they're all they've been shut down, but they were destroyed by Russia.
Right.
So these are things we should do, but I'm not too I'm not too happy with what is going on in our country in terms of the capability of our parliamentarians. Anyway, I want to congratulate Fatima Tumanjai, but I hope that the promise she made to bring more female legislators in the National Assembly, I hope she can also say that to include folks like us who are in diaspora, where dual citizenship is not in our books, where a Gambian who contributes every single month to send money to their parents. You're building, you spend money, and then it grows the economy. We contribute more than at least 27% to of the country's
Yeah,
GDP, but yet still we cannot run for elective office. I think that's disservice to our country.
I think so.
And we need to have parliamentarians that can. And do you know that if they bring that as a bill in parliament, it may pass. We
Right.
we we need to work on that.
Right.
We need to strategize and get these people to say, hey, you know that you were financed by someone one way or the other. Someone sent you something when you were running for office. Can you think about bringing a bill, especially UDP MPs right now? I think those are the ones we should. But I don't know whether what UDP's history with APRC, will they sit at the same table to engage each other? I think this should be a time when we can say, hey, we are all big boys and girls. Let's forget about our differences. They may have a common enemy.
There you go. That's what I was
Barrow may not be the enemy, but those advisors around Barrow are the biggest enemies. And I will keep on saying it because if you disagree with their policies, they will say, oh, you are against what? The president's agenda.
right.
And this is how we create dictators if we cannot criticize. So I hope we can find solutions, but our economy is small. We can develop ourselves.
Right.
But this new parliament, I hope they don't have the same attitude when they come in. And also, they should have every parliamentarian should have a scheduler, a person who can come in and if you call, you are able to engage that person, have a meeting with the parliamentarian. But now, if you try to engage a parliamentarian, you have to go directly through them, which I think maybe some kind of disservice in a way. So I don't want to take too much of your time, please.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much. Yes, I think UDP with the APRC, particularly the APR, the No to Coalition APRC, the renegade APRC, that has swept before this. They have 6 seats with them right now. I think UDP,
Where's the sixth one?
uh, is it 5 or 6? I think
No,
they
it's five. Fornia has
five.
five.
Okay, so they have 5 seats. I think UDP really should be able to, they should strategize and be able to work with these people. They had a very difficult past, I know. Jammeh and the UDP, but now they have a common interest. So they should be able to work together and put up a challenge to Barrow's agenda to some extent. Now, they should not be just a spoiler in the National Assembly. They should work for the interest of the country. If the bill comes that is definitely in the interest of the country, it's a really good bill, they should support it. But if they feel like the bill is not the right thing for the country, they should be able to collaborate and put up a challenge to it. Also, I think that the Gambia's problem, you talked about transportation in the country. I think a lot of these capital projects the government is embarking on, Doctor, I think they have to, it is not really bad to get into these ambitious capital projects, but the government should really look at whether these projects are creating employment in the country or not. And sadly, that is what usually are lacking. You see all this money spent, on these capital projects. The bulk of the money goes into, consultants, goes into expenses and other things that we don't really look at whether this project Gambians are employed, in creating this project, in implementing this project, because the more Gambians you have employed, the more income they make in the country, and those incomes are spent in the country, and that helps the economy. But I wish the National Assembly is in a position where they can debate some of these projects and ask questions. How many Gambians will be employed by this? And look at all those things before really. And also, with respect to transportation, the Gambian government, particularly during Jawara's days, tried public transportation. It worked for a little while, but the problems of accountability. A lot of these government projects are not well accounted for, and much of the money is made from this public transport don't even go back to the government. And when these vehicles when they break down, there's hardly any money to fix them, because these monies that are collected, the monies that passengers pay that are collected, are never accounted for. In many cases, they go into private pockets. And GPTC eventually became a bankrupt entity. They could not even repair their vehicle, their buses. So, government public transportation and all this public stuff can be good, but they have to be properly managed. Otherwise, it just become a useless, a wasteful expense, a wasteful expenditure for the government and for the public, for that matter. Dr. Conteh, do you have anything else on this? Otherwise, we're gonna move on to mostly the CePrass report on the survey they did, and then I think that probably will be the crux of what we're gonna look at now. I wanted to talk a little bit about the healthcare workers, the strike by the healthcare workers, probably just in passing, but we're not going to be very detailed on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Dr. Conteh, CePrass came out with a new poll just before the National Assembly election. CePrass is they describe it as an academic and policy research institute, institute based in the Gambia, and they presented their poll just a day or two before the elections, National Assembly elections, and their predictions are that NPP is going to poll 30% of the votes, and UDP 30% of the 53 seats, and UDP polls 26% of the seats. Again, I think the numbers are pretty close, so one can say that they are onto something here. NPP did not come out with 30, but they came out with 24. so which is pretty close, I believe. And UDP did not come out with 26, but they came out with 16. So the big picture is that NPP prevailed over UDP again. They went into a lot of other things about the economy, about corruption, about healthcare, about many things. But if you look at all of those, by and large, Gambian people are not really satisfied with the Barrow government. They do not think Barrow government is doing a pretty good job in managing the affairs of the country. The perception of corruption is very, very high in the country. And I think that is one area that the government needs to really, really work hard on. There is going to be no way for us to improve the condition of the Gambian people, for us to transform this economy, for us to develop this country without tackling the issue of corruption. Corruption, they put it in nice ways in their economic reports and financial reports as leakages, but the biggest leakage we are having in the country is corruption. There is a high perception of corruption in the country. Everybody's talking about that. And it has to be dealt with, frankly speaking. And at some point, many of these officials, at the end of their term, whenever the government changes, have to be investigated and put on trial. You come into government with virtually not even a bicycle. You spend 5 years there, you leave, and you have a salary of not even more than 15, 20,000. You leave as a millionaire. Gambian people should not accept that. There has to be a way of making these people accountable for impoverishing the Gambian people, for stealing their wealth. So unless the government is doing something about these things, about healthcare, about education, there was information that the Gambia may not even be able to participate in West African Examination Council this year because they could not pay their arrears. In the face of all that, we're having all these, problems of corruption in the country. And your own children are here, this is where your kids are going to be educated. This is where your family is going to go to seek healthcare. At some point we have to know that, we have to realize that in the long run, you are not doing this to anybody but yourself. At least some of us, we are not in Gambia. I shouldn't really care too much, what the healthcare situation is there. I shouldn't really care too much about, what the education system is like there. But, many of these officials, they live in this country, their children live there, are going to live there, their other extended family members live here. They should at least think about living a good legacy, good country, creating a good country for them, to be able to address their needs. Not even to talk about the daily expenses of feeding your family, but, things like healthcare, things like good education, things like good road network, good infrastructure, a lot of these things. This is what's going to make a difference for the Gambian people, not all these political wrangling and stuff like that. But, so the CePrass report went into all these and, sound the people's opinion about how they feel about the state of the economy, state of the country, with regards to the performance of this NPP government. So far, the report is not very good. Dr. Conteh.
Okay, but let's go back to CePrass report. Did they say 30%?
Yeah, for NPP. Actually, they said 30.19% for NPP and 26.42% for UDP.
Okay, they just missed it by 5%.
Yeah.
So if we do extrapolation, their research, their finding was correct.
Yeah.
Because so NPP won. Let's NPP won 19 seats, right?
18. But if you add their coalition, NRP brought 4.
No, let's take those out. Let's
Okay.
look at the 18. If you take 18, you divide by 53 seats. Actually, no, we cannot even do it by 53. How many candidates did they sponsor? 40?
I think
Or
40. Yeah.
no, you think so? Yeah, 40.
Yeah, 40.
So if then that is the case, NPP actually, the voter outcome was 37.5%.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think their poll is pretty good.
Yeah, they came with their poll was good because
Yeah.
if we are only going to look at the candidates, this if we base it on the total number of candidates they sponsored and the candidates that won exclusively on the NPP, not the independent candidates,
Mhm.
then their prediction was within the margin was right.
Right. I think they made a good. Their poll is good.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So yes, I think they're pretty good. But the interesting part is the response of Gambians with regards to the economy itself, to the performance of the government, Barrow's government, with regards to healthcare, education, corruption, issues like that. Like for example, healthcare. Some 52%, I think, government does not plan to increase access to healthcare. So that is quite significant. And on the economy, 85% think government didn't do enough to stabilize prices. 85%.
Wow.
And if you look at the issue of 66% of the respondents did not agree that the government is committed to addressing corruption.
Hmm.
Yes. So these are big numbers, and so Barrow really need to. I know they are usually happy when CePrass report comes out that NPP we will win the majority of the vote. They like that part, but they should also be able to look at this other part and try to address those issues as well. Not just run off with the good news, but also the bad news contained in these opinion polls. So I think that's the next challenge for the government. They need to um, look at these issues and crime also. 76% reported that crime had either increased or increased rapidly. So the perception of high rate of crime in the country is also very high. Um, the interesting thing is with all these court cases, especially UDP and the and the NPP battles in the court, there is still a high degree of trust in the Supreme Court, in the legal system. So that's a good thing. Many Gambians, about 60%, report high trust for the Supreme Court, for the legal system. So that's a really good thing. And with regards to Senegal, 50% of the respondents believe relationship with Senegal is exploitative and is not to the benefit of the Gambian people. So that that is something else that the Gambian government needs to really look at closely. Um, on the issue of women affairs, 49% think government is not committed to women empowerment. And in terms of youth empowerment and youth employment, 52% said government performance on youth development is very poor. And 81% disapprove giving fishing rights to EU and China.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are things government needs to look at, and try to devise policies and actions that will, satisfy the Gambian population. And these are probably some of the things that will ultimately transform the economy and the dynamics in Gambian society and the Gambian economy. But that's the CePrass report for you, Dr. Conteh. Unless you have anything to say on this, I'll briefly talk about the healthcare workers' strike. There's not really much on that, but I just wanted to probably just say a few things on that, and we'll be done for today.
Okay, I want to go back to price stabilization.
Yes.
How can we stabilize price when more than 80% of the foods we consume is imported? And the people who are importing those goods, they are not confined by the unit cost of purchase and the insurance involved. So, do you want to be in a business where you buy goods for resale? What you purchase it for is more than what you're going to sell it for. So, I think we should try to. I like the idea of saying that let's ban onion importation, and let's try to get agriculture for us to do some beehives and so forth. Let's empower agriculture into food production so that we don't have, because we are facing food uh, uncertainty, especially in the urban area. And let's have this encouragement of the government to try to decentralize administration. We cannot have everything centered around KMC. If you look at it, almost most of the government offices, and Banjul with the Honorable Usman Silla, who lost the election, was concerned about the erosion in Banjul. And then why do we have to even consider having government buildings, again, new buildings in Banjul, when there's a possibility that a tsunami may come and wipe Banjul out? I'm not predicting that to happen, but because of global effect, what's happening with the weather effect, is going to create some problems for us.
Right.
And no one is sitting down to think, that while Senegal is building ports, we are only concentrating on just on Banjul. One way in by the land and the other way by sea. And Yomi is out there. No one is taking advantage of the opportunities that are in North Bank. So why are you going to have ships sitting down waiting to be unloaded in Banjul when right across from you, you can build a port there?
Absolutely.
So that these people will not have to sit for 3 weeks or even a month. So if I come with cargo and I have to unload it, and you cannot get to it, do you really think I'm going to charge you for the delay?
Absolutely.
So so we are not, instead of going out there to build these big roads and so forth. Those are things we should concentrate on.
Right.
Look at the centralized services, $2.1 billion is, and no one can ask Mambo Njai, can you tell us how much you actually spent? Gambia is the only country where they can show you the budgeted revenue. They can tell you the actual revenue, but they cannot tell you the actual expenditures.
Right.
To see whether what was predicted in the budget, which is a forecast planning,
Yeah.
that your fiscal deficit, what do we actually have in fiscal deficit? And what was the actual amount that we borrowed, the actual amount that we paid? So if we have a competent parliament and the president's advisors are willing to listen to folks, we can develop our country.
Right.
But when you criticize, they say that you are against the president's agenda. So I guess maybe as it goes on, some of us will be in opposition forever.
And recently, I think, Dr. Conteh, I wasn't sure, but I think I heard about something like a meeting of something like a council of economic advisors to the president. I was like, do they have that? I don't know if that was secretly set up but I never heard about that until sometime last week. And I
Okay.
was surprised to hear about that because I don't really know what that council is doing. And I don't even know their members. I don't know what they do, but it's something I think I may have to do a little bit digging on this. But I think I had something like that last week.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting, but we will see. I think there is a lot of work that really needs to be done.
Yeah.
But Dr. Conte, I want to briefly talk about the strike by the healthcare workers.
Hmm.
Healthcare workers at Beyond um, sometime last week, are objecting to the transfer or redeployment of their CEO, whose name is Mamadi Cham, I believe. I think the Ministry of Health is planning to transfer this guy, relocate him to another facility. The the staff and the employees at this health center in Biam are resisting that transfer. Uh, they over their dead body, they will see him leave because they believe that he has brought in a lot of positive changes to the hospital and to their condition of work, and they believe that government's reasons for relocating him is not sufficient. It's not plausible. It's not doesn't make sense to them. So they want him to stay, and they are willing to go on strike to ensure that he stays. And it's quite interesting, and it reminds me of another group in the Gambia. They call them R2K, Right to Know. And remember, sometime last week or so, they wrote a petition to the IEC to suspend NPP from taking part in these National Assembly elections. You know, because they believe that NPP did not hold a Congress. So that disqualifies NPP from participating in the National Assembly. I mean, I think the R2K, and, fittingly, IEC did not even bother to respond to that. I think they are under no obligation to respond to them. They can go to court if they want. I think sometimes, Gambian organizations, some of these they are well intentioned. They really, understandably, they want to do good, but they have to understand how they have to operate. Calling the IEC to suspend a political party because of something you believe is not satisfied. IEC is under no obligation to listen to you, and you have no right to call IEC to take a particular action against somebody else. If you want to object to somebody's participation in an election, you have to write a petition to the court. You have to petition the court to declare that action unlawful. But I just wanted to say that in passing, but also to go back to the Biam incident. The Ministry of Health has the right to redeploy any of its staff to any healthcare facility in the country. And the fact that this particular CEO of Biam did really good work at the hospital, at the facility in Biam, could actually be good reason to redeploy him to another place where he could do some transformation there as well.
Hmm.
You can't leave a good worker, like a good manager, a good CEO in just one place. If he does a good work here, and you got to just make sure, you bring in somebody there who can sustain that transformation and that progress there. But he can go to another place and implement similar transformations there also. But these workers don't see it like that. They want to personalize this person as theirs, partly because, we know how Gambia is allowing to do whatever they want, and they are not accounted for. anything, so they don't want changes. So it just baffles my mind, that people can try to undermine government. The Minister of Health has a right to redeploy anybody. So that comes, with your employment terms. So they need to understand that. But some of these things, I don't know. But I just wanted to say that briefly because I could not just ignore it. So yeah, but that's all I have for today, Dr. Conteh. Unless you have something to say, we're gonna wrap up this. We're gonna close here, and then we'll meet again next Sunday.
Okay, well, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I think. So.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Conteh. Thank you for being here. And to our audience, we thank you very much. If you have any questions or concerns, inbox us, send it to Dr. Conteh, or go to our the Gambia In Perspectives, and tell us what you think. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube. So thanks again. Hopefully we'll see you again next Sunday.
Okay, take care, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Conteh.
Bye-bye.